you may be familiar with this fella. This guy is Bob Good, who Harris Faulkner last night, or night before on Fox, but last night we looked at it, was referred to as Bob Goodman. And that's not his name. But who gives a shit? Because he's only one of the holdouts. And ultimately, insofar as I know, he continued to hold out. His title of his video, Rep Bob Good, the McCarthy cult is built off of fear. Kevin's leverage is shrinking every vote. Is it? Now, I honestly, I think that if they could finagle something like, look, just go home and stay there. We don't need your vote, but we don't need you here. If we can have, just don't not vote for me. Like that's the leverage he's looking at right now. And Democrats are coming in with their arms in slings straight from surgery just so they can keep the numbers up. If one person is missing, the threshold drops down, obviously, to 217, or that 50% plus one. And we'll see. But I don't think he'll have it tonight either. I think they'll have the same 7 holdouts or 8 holdouts because they have not gotten anything written, in, and some like, in the drama, queen world that they are, that they're not going to. By the way, let's enjoy for a second, might I digress, the idea that the Republicans are going to attempt, and probably fail, to nominate Kevin McCarthy and make him speaker late on a Friday in the dead of night. It was just 217. You know what I mean. Why can't the Dems leverage anything here? Well, because things aren't quite that drastic yet. Republicans, you have to understand, you have to leverage something, you have to negotiate with people that want something you can give or care about something that you equally care about. They don't give a shit. A good portion of Republicans think it's awesome that the House isn't moving, that it's frozen in time. They don't give a shit. They have to care. It's one of the reasons why, it's up to Democrats to always save Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and those kind of things. Because honest to God, the Republicans just don't give a fuck. They've all got this kind of like, oh, if you're old, maybe we should put you on an ice floe. And if you're like, if you're not healthy enough to make it, you're not a keeper. They think this whole thing's a Donner Party, and they way overestimate their physical worth. But let's see what Bob Good says, because the McCarthy cult is built off of fear. Kevin's leverage is shrinking every vote. This was posted 6 hours ago. I don't know if it was from this morning or from last night, but ultimately they lost a lot of votes between when he said this and now. Whoops, hold on. I turned the audio off.
Congressman, you've gotten to be kind of a hero of this patriot movement now about what's
not so fast, asshole.
Exactly going on. Where do you stand? Because now it looks like, hey, there's all kind of talk of, Chip Roy did a deal, but then Chip Roy said, I didn't do that. McCarthy didn't say that. There's an outline. There's not an outline. There's an overall schematic.
That was a back and forth Twitter thing that he was referring to earlier, which turns out to be the case.
Of a deal. Other people are saying we had Matt Rosendahl, Dale, up here.
Dang.
From Montana, too, to start the day. And he says, hey, that's fine. And the Rules Committee, there's some great changes, but I don't trust these guys, and I'm not going to do it. Where do we stand right now? You've been one of the ones that have just been adamant to say, hey, look, once McCarthy understands he's not going to be speaker, then we can make progress.
Yeah. After we fucked the whole thing up, then we can make everyone start from scratch, and they'll all have to gargle my balls. That's the... It's very Trumpian.
Right. It's kind of like the 12 o'clock high scene I love, too, when Gregory Peck walks in there and goes, hey, you guys got to understand you're all dead. And once you once you understand that, then we're going to start making progress on dropping bombs over Nazi Germany. Until that time, we're not going to make any progress. You kind of say the same thing.
Yes. You guys have to be willing to ruin your political careers because your own constituents, who you are here to represent, will turn on you and vote you out of office because you placated me and 4 other assholes that are holding this entire thing hostage. So just get that through your thick fucking skull, and let's have some pizza.
Once McCarthy and his team understand that a sine qua non of any deal is he has to go, we're not going to make progress. So where are we today? Because you're hearing the curtain's about to come up. The world, the entire world, and I can tell you, I talked to guys in Europe and Asia overnight, all night.
Yeah, mostly that's who he talks to.
And they're riveted by this because obviously it affects capital markets, the debt ceiling, the spending, all of it. So the whole world from Singapore to Hong Kong, Tokyo, Frankfurt, the city of London, everybody's watching this. Where do we stand, sir?
Well, it is hard to know exactly where we are, but
yeah, it's only been 4 days, and we should have been prepared for this. And a lot of us thought there would be a red wave, and I'd be irrelevant. But here I am talking to you, Steve.
My hope would be that all 20 of us will hold strong, and we will vote once again for someone other than Kevin McCarthy here at noon today. We continue, Steve, and admittedly, this is frustrating. We continue to hear from other members who will tell us they're about ready to vote against Kevin McCarthy. They're about to join us. And the key for us is to keep doing what we've been doing. We're winning if we keep doing what we're doing because.
Yes. And what we're doing, Steve, if I may, is losing. So we're winning if we just keep losing. Are you with me? Yeah. I know. It doesn't sound sane or like a strategy or like something an adult would say if they hadn't just been hit in the head with a hammer soaked in mushrooms. But that's I'm sticking to it. That's my plan for the day. As long as we keep losing, we're winning.
Time is on our side. We shouldn't be.
No, it is not. And by the way, maybe actually I take it back. Maybe it is. Time might be on his side because the rest of us actually give a fuck. The rest of us want our government to work and want things to move forward. They don't care. They can waste all the time they want because they don't consider it wasting time.
In a hurry to make a bad decision. It's funny. This is our.
We are woozing, right? It sounds counterintuitive. Because it's crazy.
Fourth day here. And of course, the detractors, the world's falling apart because Congress has taken 4 days to make a very important decision. People aren't going to care in 2 weeks.
No, it's not that you took 4 days. It's that you can't get to work because you're taking those days now. Because you didn't do your homework. No one has a map out of the burning building.
Weeks or 6 months, how many days it took for us to get a speaker. And quite frankly, these last 4 days are probably the most productive or at least the least harmful.
See, that's what I'm talking about. That's why they don't give a fuck about time. They think any bill that's passed is burning taxpayer money and a waste of fucking time. And that's why America hates Washington.
4 days.
It couldn't possibly be because of them.
I've spent in Congress in the 2 years I've been here because we haven't done anything to the country yet.
There you go. See? That's the philosophy. That's why they don't give a shit. That's why the 6 or 7 will probably hold strong at 10 o'clock. Unless, of course, they get their palm greased and then they'll just take whatever. No, or they'll just vote present. I'm a never Kevin, so I'm going to vote present. That totally. He thinks productivity is judged in how little they do. Yes. He's your employee.
And we're actually trying to do something for the country by trying to elect the best possible speaker. So
No, you're not. You are not trying to elect the best possible speaker because you're not even entertaining half of the body. You are trying to not elect one person. And you are trying to turn whoever you turn into your own personal marionette because you know you couldn't win if you ran. So you're trying to Dick Cheney your way through this.
20 of us need to hang together, continue to vote against Kevin McCarthy, continue to encourage our colleagues and your listeners out there, your audience, your viewers. They need to encourage their Congress members, their Republican members of Congress to join us. To increase the numbers, to get off the bench.
Texas make peace.
And get onto the field and help us to elect the best possible speaker. That's what needs to happen. And hopefully that's going to hold strong at noon today when we have our first vote or what would be our 12th vote. Making history is hard.
you're not making history. This is not an achievement. You're not the first person to win 30 gold medals. That's not how that works at all. You did not achieve history, a historic moment. You bumbled your way into, wow, it's been a long time since anybody fucked up this bad.
There's a reason why this hasn't happened in 100 years. Change is painful. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Have you seen Steve? Have you seen him? The man looks like fourth stage syphilis wearing 4 shirts.
And
if I wasn't comfortable with being uncomfortable, I wouldn't even be able to do this fucking show.
Requires perseverance. I know we've said it a lot, but it requires courage. And again,
why? Courage. Well, I guess to some degree, their supporters are whack jobs and they're dangerous, and we've seen that. So yeah, it might be a little more like bullheadedness, stubborn idiocy.
Again, if this was easy, it would happen every 2 years, but it's
no, it is easy. This is easy. Not deciding who your leader is beforehand and getting your fucking act together is the easy part. Not doing your homework, not reading the book, and winging the fucking book report because you watched the movie is the easy part. The fuck are you talking about? You're not doing the hard part, which I suppose is easy. Jesus Christ.
It's not easy to do what we're doing.
Yes, it is. Yeah, you don't have to do, they don't have to present a speaker. They get to have their meetings behind closed doors about what rules they'll accept and what rules they won't. And then they'll politispeak it into a microphone later and maybe try to, like, we got to 2 people on a panel that's, and I got a committee chairmanship. That, and then they'll run off and then hope nobody remembers this by the time they're yelling fucking Hunter Biden's laptop into a microphone. Sir, no, you're not answering my question. They're hoping nobody will remember this. Kind of like the fact that we're not in Afghanistan anymore. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I think this is a different group of fighters than perhaps that we've had in recent memory.
Well, it's smaller than it was yesterday, sure.
And we're willing to see it through. I certainly myself and some of my colleagues, I hope it's all 20 today. That
turns out, no.
We'll continue to hold strong. I hope that we'll add to those numbers today. We will see what the day unfolds beginning at noon.
So behind the scenes, I just want to make sure, because I tell people it's so intense behind the scenes.
It's so intense. It's so intense. There's like big fights, pepperoni or meat lovers or all vegetable, and
very nasty. Behind the scenes, people are coming up to you and say, hey, I want to join you. I'm going to join you.
And then they don't.
But for a host of reasons, they're not prepared to, they're not as...
They don't. They say they're going to, and they don't. So what you're saying is, behind the scenes, Republicans are a herd of duplicitous assholes. I think we can all settle on that? Yeah? Okay.
Because we thought some guys were going to join yesterday, some men and women, but they're not prepared to pull the trigger because they're going to take too much heat from the lobbyists and, quite frankly, from conservative media. I mean, Fox all day long is calling you insurrectionist, obstructionist.
No, they didn't do it all day long. I think Brian Kilmeade was the one slip.
All of that. Is that what's holding back additional people joining the 2020 Patriots?
Yeah, and that this is a dumb idea. I mean, I think it's like a parallel track. Both, they're afraid of the embarrassment, but mostly because it's fucking stupid. Yeah. I think the main reason might be that they're not all in a district that's totally safe and full of QAnon maggots who will vote for anybody with an R on their shirt, as long as they're mean to the right people. I think that's probably...
I honestly believe the primary fear is from the very person that they're voting for. You break it down, yes, there's other concerns, there's other reasons, totally. But the primary motivation is the very person that they're voting for. Whether it's consequence or retaliation.
Yes, everyone, these guys are as afraid of Kevin McCarthy as John Paul McIsaac is of being snuffed by the Bidens. Because both Joe Biden and Kevin McCarthy have a history of mafia-like behavior leading to the deaths of their rivals. It's downright Putin-esque.
If he ultimately were to become the speaker, or whatever involvement they have in the status quo, whatever they stand to benefit from an assignment or a leadership position or a promise of this or that.
So you're telling me you don't have any committee chairmanships. Good to know.
And I think it really boils down to Kevin McCarthy. The very reason why they're voting for Kevin McCarthy is for fear.
Yes, he's a scary dude. He's not at all kind of lame and douchey.
Of not voting for Kevin McCarthy if he were to become speaker. But the way to ensure that doesn't.
So they think he's got the votes otherwise. So you guys are protecting. So it's because of you guys that they don't feel free to vote their conscience because.
Happen is to have more members sustain this with us, add to our numbers, and help us to accelerate the process of moving towards a speaker. What should happen is he should withdraw for the good of the country, the good of the Congress, and the good of the Republican conference.
Yeah, he should probably step down, too. I would resign if I was him. I mean, that's a good idea. You know what? You should resign, too. I think it would be a good idea. Steve should just go straight to jail. I think for the good of the country. Since we're talking about the good of the country. I mean, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene should obviously go to the men's prison of her choice. But Matt Gaetz probably should be used as an anchor for a fishing boat off of Epstein's Island. I mean, from a judicial standpoint, of course.
Then let us go back into our conference meetings, put forth Jim Jordan's, Byron Donalds, Kevin Hearn, some of the names that I've put forth over these last.
There's more than one Jim Jordan? Yikes.
3 or 4 days. And others can put forth.
It's like 3 monkeys in a row, all of them covering their eyes.
With nominees. No one of us can choose a speaker. Any 5 of us can veto a speaker, but
yeah, which is fucking crazy.
It takes 218 of us to come together and choose a speaker. Let's have that contest.
Yeah, it takes 218 to come together and get one. It takes 5 to get rid of them. That's not setting yourself up to get your fucking knee swept. This is the stupidest ass.
Let's have that debate. Let's vet those candidates. Let's
do what we should have been doing months ago. Excuse me.
Work through a process of elimination. We all want to get to 218 for the best possible speaker. And you got 222 members. We're not going to all agree on who that one is, but 200.
But most of you have to.
218 of us are going to have to work together. That's the way the founders intended. You know, Steve, I want to credit Molly Hemingway.
Yeah, it was a lot fewer people back then. I'm just going to say.
I saw her say this morning, so I want to give credit where it's due as I'm stealing this for a moment. But, we ought to be looking over the Senate and say that's the problem. Why didn't the Senate battle their leadership position?
Yes.
Why did the Senate just coronate again Mitch McConnell after?
Because he's the minority leader. Dumb fuck. He's effectively a whip. And by the way, he's still got his job, unlike Trump, who you chase around.
After what he has done recently, we're doing the right thing in the House. This is what ought to happen in the House as we contest our leadership and give the American people the kind of fighter they need, they deserve to save the republic.
Or cave in and just give them Kevin McCarthy. That you also could go that way.
Also, for the constitutional conservatives here,
so the room's empty, is what you're saying.
You got McCarthy, but you also have these changes, and they're quite frankly breathtaking when you think of the way the place has worked. People have been trying to do this and talking about it for 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
You guys have changes up there with McCarthy gone, and if you can trust somebody to implement them, that are quite frankly breathtaking about getting to the heart of the cartel and not let them run the show.
He loves this word cartel right now. He thinks that's a winning spot. Like, it's dumb because regime wasn't working.
But let the representatives of the American people run the show. Would that have any of that happened if you had just coordinated McCarthy, which so much of the conservative Inc. wanted to do, sir?
Can you imagine? No, of course not, Steve. Can you imagine where we would be if we had just, after the conference vote on November 15th?
Can you imagine where you'll be if tonight he can't peg off one of you guys and give you a spot that makes you vote present and the other one vote for him, and they somebody has to send a note over to Hakeem Jeffries and says, hey, we'll give you guys better committee spots and other stuff, and I'll put it in writing if you just have 6 of your people stand up for me and just get this over with.
7 days after the election, we just came out of that and said, well, Kevin McCarthy got 188 votes. I guess that means he's entitled to 218 on the House floor. We all just have to fall in line like sheep and rubber stamp that and vote for that. And then, gosh, we'll hope and pray that somehow he'll be different than he's been for his entire political career. And somehow the swamp cartel and the establishment.
I mean, this is nice, isn't it? He's just shitting on the dude. Just doesn't care. This is arguably half his brain has to know that he's either going to work with this guy or work with a bunch of people who supported that guy who are pissed at him that they didn't get that guy.
Will all of a sudden become true, courageous, conservative, patriot fighters all of a sudden to save the republic. They'll have some epiphany after we coronate the current leadership team. Could you imagine where we would be? So, as you know, millions of Americans across the country are...
Dude, I can't imagine where you are right now.
Are putting their hope and faith and trust that maybe Republicans are finally willing to fight, finally to...
Yes, with each other. And that's what I like.
Willing to do what the voters who sent us to Washington have asked us to do.
Yes, attack the Washington inside the Beltway swamp creatures, and so we attacked the rest of our own party. That's and spoke nicely, relatively nicely about Democrats. It's what they sent me here for.
And I just want to thank all those folks out who've expressed their support, their prayers, their encouragement.
He's not talking to us.
We all, appreciate that. It does help us. But if you live in a district where your Republican congressman has not come out and voted against Kevin McCarthy, I would certainly encourage you to reach out to them, let them know you want them to do that at noon today.
By the way,
apparently they didn't reach out or they were ineffective.
the number is 202-225-3121. That is the main switchboard for the House of Representatives. They'll put you right through to your congressman, or if you want to go to Congressman Good and show your support, make sure 202-225-3122. And we know that you're overwhelming with emails and calls because some people are cutting off their phones, just send it to voicemail, which is always a good sign. Congressman, I want to give some insight to behind the scenes because I know many of the actors here.
Yeah. Let's add some transparency to the background.
And there are many tough people, but they said they've never seen the knives out. They've never seen it as nasty as it's gotten in the last 48 hours, and it's only going to get nastier when the curtain rises today at noon. Just give us some insights. How tough is this behind the scenes, sir?
Well, I'll tell you on the inside, honestly, Steve, I came out on November 10 and said I wasn't voting for Kevin McCarthy. He was the problem. He wasn't the solution. And so internally here on the Capitol complex, I'm not the most popular guy in the room, I guess.
What? Citation needed.
That's probably not surprising. But
But your voice is so inviting, and you have such a charm about you, and you look like you've slept.
It's not when you come out early and you let folks know where you stand and you know that you're not for sale and
and then you sell yourself like your colleagues.
You know that you're not going to compromise, then they pretty much recognize that's where you are. But the pressure is going to increase if we don't hold this thing together. I think, and what you've got among our group of 20, just to be totally transparent, some are, they recognize that we cannot have the true transformational change that we need, no matter what agreements there are and what conditions there are and what rule changes and process changes, which should happen, quite frankly, and to the benefit of many of my colleagues, even more than myself for sure, have worked on that for 6 months. And we're going to be in a better place with a better rules package, some changes to the structure and the system of how Congress operates. And they're trying, but there's a portion of us certainly who recognize no matter what changes we make, without the right leader
can't trust Kevin. They can't trust Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy can't trust them. I don't know how this doesn't just automatically sail through. Shadow Woman 7, thank you so much for the gifted subs. You're lovely. You're almost single-handedly keeping us above water with our subs. That's really lovely. Thank you so much.
Who believe
and thank you again on behalf of everybody who gets a sub.
Believes in those changes and who's trustworthy and who's also the right kind of fighter when we only control one house of one of the three branches of government.
It's almost like you haven't earned a mandate and you ought to play nice.
Then it's not sufficient just to make changes. There are others who, among our group of 20, and that's the concern here, who are more inclined to think if we get the right kind of changes with, substantive restrictions on or controls or enforcements of those changes is probably a better word, then we could stomach, keeping the current leadership. I'm not in that camp. I'm not going to vote for Kevin McCarthy, but we need to hold strong and
But I will vote present like a big puss.
All vote against him, and I'm telling them that even for them from a leverage negotiation standpoint, you're a lot stronger the more you keep voting against McCarthy. We don't want to delay any votes. We want to have that vote at noon today and keep on voting until we get him to withdraw.
Congressman, how do people get to you on social media?
I don't care. Nobody cares. You're watching Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide. It's been another big day.